Okay, this is the Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 meeting of the Kitchel, Lindquist, Hartger Dunes Preserve Board. It's now 6:30 p.m. and we're going to call the meeting to order. Roll call: Snyder, Freund, Post, Jensen, Cook,
here,
Sanchez, and Brown.
Present.
Okay, the first item is the third item, February 17th, 6 meeting minutes as printed.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Item number 4, the treasurer's report. What do we do?
There's really nothing to report. The only major thing that came last month was the donation from the Mimi Vandenberg Fund. So that's reflected in your financial report.
That's noted. Accept it as presented. All right, item number 5, we have a discussion about the proposed Eagle Scout project, and we have our guest here, Kanan. Would you like to come up to the podium and tell us? Yeah, I think so. Thank you.
So I'm Kanan Burko. I'm a Life Scout with Troop 246 out of Grand Haven, Michigan. And I turned 18 in December, so I need to get started on my Eagle Scout project. And I was wondering if the preserve had any projects that they needed done, like boot scrapers or trail signs or benches or like invasive species removal, trail restoration, or trail building.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're really excited about that. And we've had Boy Scout projects before, Eagle Scout projects before. Eric, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, totally. I think, like we were chatting earlier, Kanan, I think any of those projects would potentially work. I feel like we've always got a need for basic things like trail markers and maintenance, the putting more benches for seating. I think that's always a good idea. We have a number of benches out there, but I think we could use more. There definitely is we've got one stairway that is present on the preserve that is potentially in need of some maintenance, so it'd be worth getting out there and hiking and just scoping it out. That if I was going to make any advice or recommendation, it would probably be like, hey, let's schedule a time, get out with you, with as many of the advisory board members as were available, and just hike the preserve and have a conversation. There's no question that we have an abundance of invasive species that you could tackle, and for a project like this, I would recommend including some kind of an educational component that maybe we could put in place or install at the preserve. So I feel like those kind of activities really fit well within the Eagle Scout project concept or idea. I don't know, other board members, what do you think?
I'll speak a little closer to the
mic.
mic.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there's like several areas in the park, even tucked in, that I don't think volunteers have gotten to yet, where invasive species work could be done for sure.
What are you interested in doing?
I mean, I'm kind of partial to, I like to work with my hands, so building something, not the biggest, nature lover, but working with plants or anything like that. So I think maybe building something or doing something like that could be more up my alley than plant removal or something like that. But if a plant removal is what you need, then a plant removal is what I'll do.
So maybe even trail markers or things like that would be interesting as well.
Yes.
Okay. Dave?
No, I think the suggestions that were made were good. I know a lot of the structures are older that are out there. I took my family hiking, I think in October, and then again here in February. We just noticed some of the bridges kind of needed some upkeep. So I think there'd be enough to keep you busy. Thank you for volunteering. I guess we're looking forward to taking you out there and seeing what you think you'd be best suited to doing.
Well, aren't we planning to connect Ottawa Sands and KLH? Maybe there's something in that project that he could help with Fine One.
There is a plan to eventually connect the Ottawa Sands trails and trail that would, so we'd be connected from the entrance to the Dunes Preserve as we know it now right on where the marina is, all the way to Hofnest. So that could be. We also have the classroom there by the marina, which could use some fresh ideas, I think, as well from a date, painting, things to it. So I would agree that within your interest of maybe doing something, constructing something, building something with your hands or something would be, there's plenty of things that we could do. So I also thank you for being interested in. So I think that's a pretty resounding yes. We're interested.
Thank you.
We're probably not going to go hiking out there like this week or next week, but maybe as soon as the snow thaws and we have, yeah, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe probably one of us should be in charge of sort of coordinating that.
I'm happy to do that. So you probably need email or phone contact information.
Well, yeah. I know Mr. Bessinger has my email, so he could provide you with that and reach out to me.
Yep, absolutely. Do that right away.
I would also ask that on that email you include Mr. Brummel, Brian Brummel, and I know was included on the email that I sent to Mr. Bessinger, just as a scout advisor to be included on that.
Good suggestion.
And Eric, you could include probably all of us on at least the initial reach outs.
Yep.
So, what's your time frame for the project?
So it would be great to get it done in like May would be great because I'm gone for almost the whole month of July.
Okay.
Or June, sorry, June. Or like July or August would also work for me.
Perfect.
May sounds better before the hot weather, personally.
Although it might be snowing. So.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
We've done it both ways in the past. So we've had many Eagle Scout projects at the preserve. Some of them have, taken, like part of the project was fundraising. Other times the advisory board has supplemented the project if costs are more expensive or the funds can't be raised. And I think it would be up to the board to say yes or no, but I can't imagine we wouldn't support something like that.
Yeah, we would probably be able to support with something, but with a significant kind of match. So, yeah. And I mean, we're talking a relatively limited budget project as well. So, yeah. Any other questions or discussion? Do you have any questions for us?
I do not. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming here.
And you guys are welcome to stay for the rest of this excitement, but you're also welcome
But you're
to
also
slip out.
welcome to go.
Oh,
Please.
yeah. Oh, right.
That's fine.
Safe travels
That's
with
fine.
all this crazy weather.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thanks very much. We're really glad. We'll probably be in touch, Eric.
Yeah, before then, I'll reach out right away just so you have contact information. Yep.
And any other questions, you can contact Craig.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
We're around over spring break. So,
Oh, perfect. Okay. That's good too. You're very welcome. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Yeah. discussion on that point among us? No?
Yeah.
Sure. That'd be great. Exactly. All right, next item on the agenda. Brian, you're going to talk to us a little bit about the shoreline restoration project.
Sure, thanks everybody, and appreciate you taking the time to have me come talk tonight. So, setting the stage quickly, as we recall, this project is part of a, I guess we might call it landscape scale effort. Ottawa County Parks worked with City of Grand Haven and City of Ferrysburg to obtain a grant to come up with coastal resiliency design measures for multiple different sites throughout the lower Grand River. And this included all of Ottawa Sands, wetlands and shoreline, Harbor Island, as well as this particular portion of the KLH Preserve. The area that we're talking about is, you can see here in the picture, it's basically where the old docks had eroded. And the intent of the project is to develop basically a feasibility study. So it's not intended to come up with full construction-ready designs, although we're kind of getting pretty close to that. But what we would call about 60% designs utilize natural and nature-based features to develop a more resilient shoreline. So in this particular stretch that we see, the shoreline has eroded some 40 to 60 feet in some locations. And a lot of that did happen during the recent high water period from 2018 to 2021 or so. The challenge with rebuilding that is, for one, you are in a regulated floodplain and floodway. So any of that work is going to be regulated by both the state of Michigan and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And their typical stance is that they don't let you rebuild what's been lost. So I've informally consulted with some of the Eagle staff that do the permitting in this area, and they kind of confirmed that that's their general take. So what we see throughout a lot of the Lower Grand River corridor is that there's been a lot of rock and a lot of steel sheet piling that's gone in. What that rock and steel sheet piling does is it disconnects the land from the water. So if we use what we call the turtle test, a turtle can't pass back and forth between the land and the water in a lot of those locations. And understanding the mission of the preserve, I want to try to utilize a technique that's as nature-based as possible. So we had actually gotten together about a year ago when we started kind of envisioning this with the board and kind of talked about this idea of building new dunes. And this comes on the heels, and this is not for public distribution because it's not officially published yet, but we've been working with the state of Michigan to develop the Coastal Adaptation Toolkit, which is going to include a suite of new techniques that's going to be proposed to help make Michigan's shorelines more resilient. And one of the techniques that's really being proposed, and it's really being pushed out and accepted by Michigan State University and Michigan Technological University too, is the idea of building new dunes for shoreline resilience. Essentially what happens is, as we've interrupted the natural system through shoreline hardening and dredging and things like that, we've lost a lot of the natural sand supply. So normally what you would see is sand is lost, sand comes back, sand is lost, sand comes back. And that sand moves back and forth between sandbars, beaches, and dunes, in what we would call dynamic stability. But because of development, a lot of that long-term dynamic stability is lost, and that sand gets moved offshore, and it's never available again to help rebuild the dune. So a technique that's being really promoted and has only been done a couple of times at this point on some projects that we've worked on is actually building new dunes during low water periods in order to essentially artificially replace that sand supply. So it's a naturally resilient way of introducing sand back to the system in a way that's creating habitat, but at the same time is working within what we might call Eagle's constraints when it comes to placing fill along the shoreline. So that's actually what we would be proposing to do here along the shoreline, knowing that we can't build out and it's not in the interest of the grant or likely the preserve to place rock along the shoreline. There's a space where we can thread the needle, so to speak, and actually build new dunes in areas along the shoreline that are outside of the regulated floodplain and outside of the critical dune that exists right there close to the shoreline. So there's a little bit of a loophole that we can exploit that Eagle's actually very well aware of, in that you can place material above the ordinary high water mark, but they highly regulate anything that's placed below the ordinary high water mark. But if you place material above the ordinary high water mark and the water comes up and pulls that sand down to naturally rebuild the shoreline, Eagle's okay with that, as long as you didn't place that material yourself below the ordinary high water mark. So Eagle is seeing this as a way, as well as Michigan State and Michigan Tech and others, as a way of building in some natural resiliency. So right now we're in a low water period. We know the water is going to come back up at some point. And sand is essentially inert. Sand does not have long-term negative habitat impacts. By building dunes, we're actually building habitat itself, but by building those dunes, but then we're building a sandbank so that the next time that the water comes up, the water would essentially eat into those dunes, but that sand would find its natural angle of repose, is what we would call it, and basically just naturally build that dune back into a beach, back down along the shoreline.
Question here, I just want to make sure I understand the concept. So
Sure.
You're saying the loophole needle we're threading is to placing sand above the high water mark, and then it would move naturally to fill in at the lower water mark?
Correct.
And that's okay, because we haven't put it at the low water mark, which is prohibited.
So
Something like that?
So the state law says that anything below the ordinary high water mark belongs to the public. And this is established in case history through the courts. That's considered the public trust. So it's the same law that says anybody has the right to walk on a beach along Michigan's Great Lakes or our protected waters. So Eagle very highly regulates any work that's done below that ordinary water mark. So they don't allow projects that would impede the public's use of that shoreline. So there's a very minimal amount of fill that they will allow below that ordinary high water mark. It's very highly restricted. But using this technique, what they wind up with is, which is part of the reason that they're supportive of it, is it essentially lets the sand naturally build back a beach. So it allows them to work within the bounds of established court cases for impacts below the public trust, while also giving a practical solution, which is really what people need, right? People need solutions and not just roadblocks. So if the end result is a natural beach and a dune that moves back and forth again, as water levels go up and down, then it's a way that essentially everybody wins, because we haven't hardened the shoreline. We still have land-water connectivity, but that public trust law is still being respected.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How high are the dunes that are being proposed to be built here?
So these that we have in here right now are proposed to be about 20 feet high.
Where does the sand come from?
So the sand would come from inland sand sources. So essentially some of our sand quarries in this area, we can pretty much find sand anywhere fairly cheaply. But it's a way of also bringing sand back to the dunes and beaches from inland sources. What would be an important part of that is matching the sand gradation so that it is a natural sand and not rock and cobble.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
So the proposal here is to bluntly just dump sand in these piles and then wait for nature to do its thing and fill in the beach?
In the simplest terms, yes. It's designed with stable slopes, and all of that would be planted with native dune grass and native vegetation, so that visually speaking, from a habitat perspective, you would see these new 20-ish foot high dunes that would have some natural topography to them that would hopefully blend in well. But in the simplest terms, you're right, it's dumping sand. We don't need to make it more than it sounds like.
So the vegetation and habitat underneath the dunes is sacrificed, for lack of a better word, because we're going to just be piling it on top of trees, it looks like, and some shrubbery.
Most of that area is invasive species, that small section, so there wouldn't really be too much of a loss vegetation-wise. And what we would lose in like beach grass would just regrow on the new dune.
And that was something that we've tried to be mindful of, and you can kind of see it here. So here, these dark lines are the contours where the sand would be placed. We tried to stop short of where there's any taller trees, so that we wouldn't have to cut down any larger trees or things like that, or any more than we would have to make a practical project. So it's mostly focused in these low-lying flat areas, like JT said, that don't necessarily have a lot of high-quality vegetation.
How will the sand be placed? Using a boat or another mechanical means on ground?
It would likely be with trucks and bulldozers. There's fairly easy access to come in along that access road there. We did this at Ottawa Sands. If you've seen some of the new dunes that were constructed over at Ottawa Sands County Park, it was the same basic type of operation.
And this would be done in the Grand Haven property as well, to the north? Or just our chunk here?
So right now, this would just be done on your property. Ottawa Sands has plans to build a lot more dunes out there utilizing kind of similar methodology. But right now, it's mostly focused on your property, which is where the majority of the road. We have not. I don't have a number off the top of my head right now. I should have prepared that for you. It's not a terribly expensive number, but I could follow up with that for you. I apologize.
So it's between $10 and how many dollars?
Well, let's see. We're talking about 13,000 cubic yards of sand. What it shows right now at say $15 a cubic yard, that comes out to around $200,000. Now, based on the work that we've done with Eagle and the way they're promoting these techniques, I would say that this project is very highly likely grant fundable, that some of the different Eagle grants would likely consider this pretty favorable. Eagle funded the woody structures that went in a couple of years ago, and they like you guys. So I think that they would be happy to help find money through some of their funding cycles.
So
I can't put words in their mouth,
Oh, of course,
but
yeah. No,
this
we
is the type of
understand.
project that I'm seeing them around the state.
you said like the goal of this is to naturally recreate the beach. Are you talking about right there on the shoreline, or feeding material out to like through the Grand and out to the actual beach on the shoreline?
So, because of the dynamic nature, that sand's going to move all around, and it'll settle into these near shore areas first, and then depending on the length of time that the lake stays high, it would potentially pull more of that sand down to here. So this little jetty here should help capture a lot of that sand. So presumably that sand would come down and settle into the.
Okay. I guess my only concern with that would be like an issue we've been dealing with at the nature preserve of people like docking their boats on the shoreline, and doing that would potentially make it more enticing for people to do so. Is it possible, like, are you planning to keep the pillars in or take them out? And if if so, maybe we could put some woody material in front of the shoreline so people can't beach their boats.
So right now, those piers would stay in place. We had actually talked at one point about the potential of anchoring wood. I noticed some of those piers.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that.
The concern we're going to run up against, and we're running up against this a lot on a lot of other projects, is there's a hydraulic impact to roughening the surface, if you so to speak, in a
Slow things
regulated
down.
floodplain. So essentially putting wood in that way would slow the river down, so to speak, even though it doesn't move much here anyway. But a model would show that it would have impacts and cause the flood elevation rise slightly,
Okay.
which is, by Eagle standards, you can't cause a rise of more than 0.005.
Okay.
Is a tolerance that's
ridiculous.
we are
measure that. Wow.
We are working through this kind of thing a lot right now, and it's very challenging to some of these.
Right. And I assume if you had too much woody debris, then it's just going to act like a catch and just like have a ton of stuff building up on it too.
They can kind of become crash climb.
The reason I bring up the woody debris is because like the opposite side of the river has a ton of habitat for fish and turtles, birds, but there's not much on this side, probably because of the erosion that has taken place. And that area would be perfect to, I mean, it probably already functions as fish habitat just because of the pillars, but it could be, I feel like it's an area that could be utilized and taken advantage of, but if, there's that floodplain issue.
And, we certainly could add in some wood along with it. I think that would be
There's actually, go down a little bit, up just past the new dune. Actually, I can't see down there. However, there is a small patch. It's just past the musical fountains, actually. It's a patch of catalpa and black locust. It's like a plantation. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I have not been able to find any information on it, but it is like strictly catalpa, black locust, and there's some black cherry in there. But I would assume if that property gets purchased, maybe some of those trees could be used for woody debris.
Yeah.
If we don't have them, not the black locust because of the chemical it has, but maybe some of the other individuals in there.
Yeah, we could definitely add in some woody structures along here, which could work. Some for boat deterrence, but the reality too is you guys have the only or some of the last soft shoreline in the entire lower corridor, and I've seen what it's like on a Saturday down there.
I had a couple questions, Brian. Sure. Do we know, like I know this area was heavily modified, over the last 150 years. Do we know what was there before? Was it in fact dune habitat or?
So JT and I have been spending hours having these conversations. So the reality, and I realize it's St. Patrick's Day and you guys are probably anxious to go get a Guinness tonight, but we could talk a long time about this. The dunes in this area are incredibly young. They're only about 1,000 years old. So historically, this entire complex would have been dunes, but we also know that the mouth of the Grand River moved, right? So exactly where that moved is largely a matter of what time scale you look at. Yeah. But this area really is very, very young geologically speaking. So to think that these dunes were actively forming just 1,000 years ago is kind of mind blowing.
I feel like that's a potential lever. Like if you're trying to, hey, this is an intro, we are like on board, and we decide this is the thing to do. Might be a lever you could pull to say, well, historically, this might be a return somewhat. What it looked like in the past. I don't know how much sand they moved out of there, if any, when they built the railroad complex and all of that.
I don't think they.
Yeah, it's already a floodplain.
Yeah, because of the wetlands that are kind of area. I mean, most of what is KLH would have, except for the higher dunes, would have probably been underwater.
Let's see, I had a second question. And I've of course forgotten what it was.
Oh, we have to do mussel surveys.
So all of the, with this plan, all of the active work would happen outside of regulated areas. So you would potentially need a soil erosion control permit, but you would not need an Eagle or an Army Corps of Engineers permit.
I just thought of my other question. I know that my theory, and I think it's backed up with some data, although I don't know where that data lives right now, but I believe that the hardening of the shoreline on the opposite side led to the significant erosion as lake levels rose and fell. So we've effectively gotten like this rebound off the hardened.
Absolutely.
You're talking about this side of the river.
On the right.
Yeah.
on
The
right.
boardwalk side.
Yep, the boardwalk
Yeah.
side.
Boardwalk side.
Yep, you have really two things going on. One is when you get that westerly push, you get the waves reflecting and bouncing off of that. And that's compounded by the fact that the Army Corps of Engineers dredges the channel regularly.
Exactly.
So that sand that would normally give you a natural assist is being manually removed on a 5-year cycle or whatever it is.
Thank you. I always forget that they see. Let's see. A follow-up to the ACE. I know at one point, this was probably 3 years ago, the Corps had described a project on the North Pier to install a wave barrier, or what they called a baffle or something.
From
like
what I understand, that's still moving forward, I think, isn't it?
I hope so. I feel like it would ameliorate some of our erosion problems.
Well, and I don't know if you guys remember, it was right around the same time 3 years ago or so, when the Corps of Engineers was planning the current dredging, they actually came to the preserve and offered that dredge sand for free.
So
And we weren't ready for it at
Right.
the time, but they said, you can have all the sand that you want for free. But the condition was that you had to do your own design and permitting for it. And at the time, it was not ready too much, but, hindsight being 2020, or looking at where we're at now, there could be a scenario that the Corps of Engineers could place that material for you for free, and you could have a zero-cost project.
Would you have to worry about the contaminants in the area though?
So Eagle is making the Corps of Engineers test for contaminants.
Okay.
And that is a limitation to utilizing some of that dredge sand, is if it is contaminated, then they're going to have to handle it differently. So, that's an element that they're going to have to address on their end, but presumably what they bring would be clean sand.
Okay.
In fact, honestly, it might not hurt to reach out to them and see if they're still looking, because they planned several years out, and we had met with the Corps of Engineers and talked to them at the time. If you guys are interested, we can try to rehash some of that.
I've got another question. So let's say we get this sand, the piles are arranged in such a way that it looks like we have an idea of what would happen when the high water comes back. Can you kind of elaborate along the shoreline what it would look like when those dunes are fully degraded? What would the shoreline look like? Would it have the same contour it does now? Would that knob kind of be filled in and backfilled?
So without having any more data in front of me right now, what you would likely, these dunes would be installed at about a 3-on-1 slope. So that would be a slope that's about like so. So normally what you see happen is when those erode, you'll see the toe of that dune erode when the high water comes up, and then the sand will naturally slough back down to that 3-on-1. That's what we call the angle of repose. So that's the naturally stable angle of that. The sand's going to try to reach.
So if that is being caused in part with the shoreline hardening on the other side, what's to keep that from happening again long term?
So that's the challenge of working in this environment, is nothing. The reality is because those natural coastal processes have been interrupted, in order to try to maintain the natural systems, it will take some kind of active management over long term. You know, we can't stop the Corps from dredging. We're not going to remove Grand Haven seawall anytime soon. So in order to try to maintain a natural system on the property that the preserve has, the reality is it's going to take some long-term management. And you know, but in the interest of the overall ecology of the area, that's a trade-off that kind of needs to come with it, as opposed to, say, overly hardening the shoreline to fight the other hardened shoreline, and then
just for clarification, are we talking about, for what we would looking at would be just the area, the brown area in the lower part, because there's a part up higher as well. Is that us too?
both areas.
Both
Yep.
areas.
Yep. So this would be a larger dune system.
So both, that whole strip there you're talking.
Yep. So right now, you know, visually that's very flat. So what you would essentially see is a 20-foot high dune that's sculpted and planted.
There is a like small little high quality wetland on the edge there, which looks like it might be buried.
This should be, so we did, well, you might have done it, Jake.
Yeah, it was me and
we
Isaac.
delineated the wetlands out
Yeah.
there, and these should be designed to work around those.
Okay,
So-
maybe I'm just seeing it. It's hard to compare that to.
Yeah, it's hard to see, but when we laid out all the site constrictions, we looked at critical dune, wetland, delineated wetlands, and floodplain, then tried to cite these in so that they would.
Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty interesting.
So what would you like to get?
So we will be drafting the report and then you know, essentially wrapping up the project over the course of this summer. So if you have any additional feedback, thoughts, additions like the wood or things like that, we would welcome any of that feedback at this point. Otherwise, you know, what the project will be delivering is you know, a 60% design. And if you guys are okay with that, then we can start to move forward with looking for funding.
And when would, if things were to go on that kind of a schedule, when would you implement?
Whenever funding's, no, the reality is work like this is easier to do at low water than high. So part of what we're trying to do with these types of practices is get people thinking in terms of, you know, quick action during low water, not quick action during high water. So that, you know, you're prepared for the next high water period. And what we're expecting and starting to see, frankly, with this low water period is there are going to be a lot of people dredging. And the marina next door to you might decide that they need to dredge in order to get the boats out. So this could even potentially be phased if you have partnerships with groups like the marina that's going to be dredging that sand and needs some place for it to go. Start with some conversations and say, hey, we will take all the sand that you guys will bring us, and you won't have to truck it off site or dispose of it. You can just use it to build our dunes, and you can use phases of it. So
You're talking this summer.
I mean, if the timing lines up, and like I have no specific knowledge that North Shore or anybody else like right in this immediate area is dredging, but we've seen this before. I've been talking to Eagle staff that are saying the dredging permits are starting to roll in, and with the low water that we're at and projected low water through the summer, people are going to be dredging to get boats in and out of marina, and that sand's going to have to go somewhere.
I might have a vested interest in saying, why would we give you sand that you're going to put upstream of our marina?
Well, and the marina has commented that the Corps of Engineers before had placed sand here and it filled their marina back in, so they weren't super thrilled with that. Right. I don't know any specifics. That's purely anecdotal. That's what they.
We're putting it on the beach, and it will go back in the river once the high water comes back. So 6 in one, half dozen in the other.
Yeah,
right?
fair, Dave. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Just wanted to say that that wetland is way further inland. My perception of how large that was spreading was so it's nowhere close.
It's not
It's like
it's not.
right. It ends just before Dewey. What it looks like.
All before Dewey.
Yeah, because that's the
Yeah,
road
it
up to the
looks big.
musical fountains.
All right, so, gentlemen, what would you propose we tell Brian tonight?
I would propose that we have a conversation with the full board. I think we're missing a couple of board members. I know Gary has a vested interest in hearing about this. And I think at our next meeting, have a full conversation. That would be nice. I mean, personally speaking, I'm supportive. I think a creative way to deal with doesn't involve shoreline hardening.
I'm supportive as well. I would be curious just to know what are the other options aside from getting permits and trying to fill it in, which sounds onerous. Is there anything else that we could do that might be more in line with our fiscal situation, understanding that there are grants for this?
Other options that might be scaled down would be, the addition of woody habitat structures. This area is much less protected than where the others had gone in, so the stability of those structures is going to be a little bit more limited. We'd potentially still get those in, and maybe not quite an Eagle Scout project, but that would be a scaled down version that would have, I would view that as maybe less resiliency, less longevity, but a much simpler project.
Could the woody structures act as a dampener to the wave energy from the boats coming through, kind of like that large pipe that they have in there?
That they will up to a point.
Okay.
So this is all no wake through here, so the boat waves aren't terrible. But when we do get that western push up through here, you get some pretty big waves.
Yeah.
And in this area where the channel narrows as opposed to the area over here, the waves bounce around in here pretty good. Get some pretty. Now, if the Corps of Engineers puts that dampener in eventually, that could help. But I'm not sure what the status is.
I have another question. So there should be, correct me if I'm wrong, shoreline transport of sand within the water itself. So this is flowing from, north down to south. Is there anything besides large woody debris that we can put in the water that would lower the velocity of the river water and cause the deposition of the sand that's naturally in it?
So really it comes down to wood and rock. Those are going to be the things, unless we start to get into concrete, which I think we probably don't even want to have that discussion. But it really comes down to wood and rock.
Okay.
Are the main structures. The trouble, especially with rock, it goes back to that public trust impact. That Eagle really, really, really does not like offshore breakwater structures and things like that to do this type of thing because of that public trust impact. Those types of rock structures to capture sediment have been done in other Great Lakes states and is actually promoted by some of the other state departments of natural resources and things like that. But Michigan's a bit of an anomaly throughout the Great Lakes in that they've really taken a hard stand.
Plus, if we added rock to the shoreline there, it would dramatically affect how the aquatic turtles that are using that area can move through. Like the rock face that we have now on one of those bends, they can't climb over stuff like that. They could actually get stuck and die from rock structures like that. So we should probably. So there's a lot of turtles that.
So it sounds like this is our best option, all things considered.
I mean, we think so, really, in that it balances the goals of the preserve with, ecology, but also providing some functionality. right? So there's no perfect solution. So there's always going to be some trade-off. And this one, we believe provides the best balance.
Okay, so talk to me about a scenario where the Marina or Army Corps of Engineers says, I'm going to have a bunch of sand soon and you can have it. How do we accept that? You had mentioned permits before.
And I'm going to share that with you real quick. These are some fact sheets that we're working on for the state of New York. So it's technically a front and back fact sheet. That's a technique that's being proposed by the state of New York, and that is actually being used. We call those rock sills. So you're welcome to hang on to those. These are some fact sheets that we're developing right now that aren't for public consumption yet, but I wanted to try to share some of this. But as far as the mechanism to be able to accept the sand, essentially depending on the final design, you would need a soil erosion control permit from Ottawa County, which is fairly easy to obtain. And you would at least want to consult with the Army Corps of Engineers because they have some room to potentially weigh in as far as the where they might claim jurisdiction. But Eagle would say that if it's above the ordinary high water mark, not the floodplain, that they would not claim jurisdiction. So essentially, if somebody came, you with sand this summer and had this rough concept, was getting a soil erosion control permit from Ottawa County and starting to take that sand.
So if the sand weren't sufficient to do exactly what you have modeled, we just start the piles and then get more?
That's what I would think. It is, you can always scale this back down as long as you stay within the footprint, because this footprint does work around regulated floodplain and critical dune and some other regulated areas. You would want to stay within the footprint, but you could always do smaller, always do less. So,
which pile is the priority, the southern one or the northern one?
really good question. I don't know that there would necessarily be one versus another. This is where there was more shoreline loss is in this area. So I might say if you could only do one area, to maybe focus on that first, just because more shoreline was lost there. A lot less stuff going that area. Go further east, starts.
I'm pretty sure where that you have the smaller dune down, some invasives. And
It's not a very high quality area.
yeah, honeysuckle, lilac, holly, and all kinds.
You said 13,000 cubic yards is the total for the two piles. Do you know the volume of the second pile that you said was a priority?
Let's see, this one is about 8,600 cubic yards, the larger one, and the smaller one's about 5,700.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming that we would use the roadway that's already in place up there to get the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So if we got the sand, then it would be someone's responsibility to grade it and then to plant you said, beach grass?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I understand that we would partner with you on this, on this, and facilitate that's check out all that stuff as would.
Yep, that is.
Yeah, I think I don't know any other questions.
I mean, if we were to do that and with the plantings, you could probably even get some volunteers to come in and help with that, like Ottawa County Parks did with Ottawa Sand.
Yeah, that could be a great Eagle Scout project too.
Yeah. Good Eagle. How many Eagle Scouts can we rally? So I think given the, I think, I agree very much with you that this needs to be discussed more by the full board, and hopefully we can do that in April. what I'm wondering is, would it be possible for you to put together a couple of pages with with some of the stuff we've talked about today, including some numbers? You know, the cubic footage is or cubic yardage is helpful. The prices are helpful. A timeline's very helpful. Why this is the best alternative, given there's not great alternatives. You know, the whole turtle thing. Just kind of not a long, drawn-out document, but maybe something in a couple of pages that people could look at before the meeting, which would be my preference. And then we could come to another meeting, have another discussion.
Sure.
Probably know more by then as well.
Yep, certainly. And in fact, as far as part of the report, we're going to be glad to make sure that we had to.
That sounds.
Yep.
Voting on it, it's just that's how we like to take away the idea that we're all very interested. And, we're quite positively inclined to look further at it.
I guess you guys know how to find me if you have any other questions.
Yeah, we do.
Glad to share, and we can,
We have both of your numbers, like on speed dial.
right. Know where to find us. We're not
Yeah.
going anywhere. Apologize that I took more than 5 minutes.
That's all right. It was a really good discussion. I really appreciate it.
I
No, it's
appreciate you
great.
guys taking the time. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome to stay if you'd like.
Green beer to drink.
Sounds good, except I have to be on the road to Ohio at about 4 in the morning tomorrow
Okay, I think.
to teach their natural shoreline class.
All right.
So I will say no
Rain
thank you,
check.
but maybe next time.
Yeah, rain check.
That's good. Okay. Thanks very much. Right. All right, next item on the agenda, the West Michigan Land Conservancy 50th year celebration hike. Eric.
Yeah. So you've all had the emails. We've gotten approval. Like, I think the board is in consensus that's a great idea. So I don't think we have to do anything other than you need to let me know how you want to participate, if you're free at all. So I think this is really more a matter of who's available.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the three tasks that we had talked about that needed potentially staffing. One would be potentially walking with the various folks, the groups that are hiking from Hoffmaster down to Kitchel Dune. Gary's already said, hey, I want the medium speed team. So I think there's a slow walking group, a medium speed, fast one. So if anybody wants to volunteer in that capacity, that's great. We had also talked about staffing a, what did they call it? The interpreter was really to, there are a couple ways you could interpret. One would be as a participant in the hike. The other would be to man a refreshment station where you could talk about the history of the Dunes Preserve. The idea was that would not necessarily be at the Education Pavilion, rather it would be inland, in the Dunes Preserve proper. I don't think we have to do that necessarily, but that was the suggestion that Kendra.
That sounds like fun to me.
Me too.
And I know that whole area inside.
Okay.
And it's on a weekend.
Yeah, what is the date of that?
That.
Yeah, April 18th. What was the time again of the hike?
Yet to be determined.
Okay.
I don't think we have a clear timeline yet. I think Kendra was on that. The final piece of the puzzle would be after hike party back up at Hoffmaster Park. So Hoffmaster, or the West Michigan Land Conservancy rather, would provide shuttle service to take through walkers back to their vehicles. And the idea was to have a booth or a table, picnic table set up at Hoffmaster. So 3 things.
I would love our bathrooms to be open on that day.
Big time. And we talked about that. So the
Great.
bathrooms need to be open. Yeah. So that's really it. I think it's really a question of at some point, Kendra's going to be like, all right, Eric, who's going to be staffing this spot? And so that's what I need. JT, I've got you down. Gary's down for a hike. I'll fill in wherever. I'm happy to hike. I'm happy to go, help out you at the refreshment.
Oh, I
station.
would like to do like the interpreting as in hike.
You want to do the
Yeah,
interpreting?
yeah.
Which hike, you want to do the fast, the medium?
Wherever would be best, I guess, for like a
What did Gary
interpreting.
want? The medium?
You want a medium.
All right, put Gary down for the medium.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the,
I could do slow or fast. I mean, if I'm nerding out about what we have throughout this area,
It's not
it
gonna
might
be
be best
fast.
first.
it's gonna be slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the maybe it's a matter of low interpretation, high speed, medium interpretation.
I mean, if you talk super
High
fast, you might be able
interpretation.
to
I
just
can
book it.
talk and walk. I mean,
Yeah.
But can people keep up?
yeah, I mean, I can.
Maybe it's like 2 groups, Eric or.
Could do like
or
an
no, 3.
educational
You wanted
hike.
to do one too. You wanted to do one.
Oh, well, exactly. And
Yeah.
I
So,
think
yeah.
I think Kendra basically said, hey, we'll take as many of you as are available, but if none of you are available, that's also fine.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's not a requirement that you're present for these 3 hiking.
I mean, there's multiple trails in different areas, so it would make sense to potentially have people.
But it starts at KL.
No,
No, it
starts at Hoffmaster,
Hoffmaster.
like south.
Stops at our open bathrooms at the education building.
And then the buses would
and then
come
the
down
buses
in our
will
turnaround.
Take them back up.
In Hoffmaster, it starts at the nature center or in the cross-country ski area at the pavilion.
Unclear. If I was going
Okay.
to guess, cross-country ski.
Yeah.
area, but that's unknown. Yeah, that's a good one. A good question. Let's see.
Well,
Yeah.
I would suggest that probably a couple of us from the board, aside from those of you who've already committed to hiking, would be available at the education center at the end of the hike. Whatever, have water or, I mean, I'm not sure what more. Welcoming. Somehow
There,
show the beauty.
I think that's a great idea, and I think the question is, do you do that at the education pavilion or up one of our trails? I think Kendra's suggestion was to have that refreshment station / interpretation, not at the end of the very end of the hike. On the other hand, I think she'd be fine if we said education pavilion makes perfect sense to us.
Well, it does. It's going to be affected.
Sure.
Weather.
Yeah. Yeah, I
which
think
will be
that's great.
open.
I have a few like pop-up. I forgot what they're called, but
Yeah.
portable
tents or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. That we could utilize too.
If you
Needed
wanted
to.
to put that. I mean, you could offer that because then if they wanted to help staff it, we just don't have the staff. We don't have that many people.
Is Ottawa County Parks taking part in this?
They are. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they might be able to.
So the progression would be Hoffmaster location in the park to be determined. People who are hiking would need a pass to get into park at that park. They would walk then to North Ottawa Dunes. Then they would cross North Shore Drive and go into Ottawa Sands. How will they be traversing from Ottawa Sands into Kitchel Lindquist Dune property? Is that going to be done by then? They said, the county said April, I thought, when we met with them, that they'd have the connection done.
I would be surprised if a trail was officially done, but I think
There's existing
to
trails.
say the fact is there are clear pathways.
Oh, okay.
I sketched that out for Kendra and said, here's approximately where I think that trail exists now, or one of the main trails, but I could have them.
After the end of this week, I'm taking a 2-week period to just go out and survey all of like that stretch of land, some stuff over South Ottawa County. So if there's things that we need to know about the property, the time to do it.
I'm not, so I think it would be important to have in the 3 groups that are walking, the medium, slow, fast group. Don't know why I said it in that order, but it doesn't matter. Have somebody who is knowledgeable about, like, here's the route through the Grand Haven space.
Will we have, or would it be beneficial to have anything like signage wise or a small poster that says, welcome to KLH Dune Preserve, this is where you are, you're in the last leg of the race, our bathrooms are open, we've got a nice place to sit and maybe take a rest.
Have they talked anything about like handouts? Like, are they maybe having that available for hikers to kind of orient themselves?
Our maps or something, QR codes, yeah.
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 So I forgot the Grand Haven open space. They'd have to traverse part of that, correct?
But there are trails through that. I mean, there are people that are hiking like all the time through KLH, through that property to Ottawa. And we might maybe need to get permission just to be safe from Grand Haven, if that was the case.
Yeah, so my suggestion, because the trail will wind up coming through space, basically, the logical, definitely. But you kind of wind up right down in here. My idea was to put one of those refreshment, like, hey, welcome to, you're on KLH property.
Hey, here's some water, yeah.
The bathrooms are just ahead, and oh, by the way, you could hike this way, or line, or west, or you could hike this way, and wind up back at your and pick up bathrooms. So
Yeah.
that was my idea for the space station.
Go off all the vernal pools over there too. I mean, those areas are gorgeous.
And there's a nice tree.
This is a far out idea, but could we have t-shirts or some type of swag that people can pick up? Like, hey, I made it to the KLH. Squish balls, I don't know. Yeah.
The other thing we haven't
Hats?
thought about is combining this with the unders. Yeah, it could just be stickers. Yeah.
True.
But t-shirts on it.
We definitely have the budget for swag. We just need somebody to be like, I'm a swag person.
Well, and have a time issue.
Yeah,
It's
gotta be
exactly
fast.
1 month.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The board members who are back from today.
Right.
That's my concern. So I'm all for it,
But
And-
we have to staff
but
it.
we have to staff, and that's always our biggest issues, like getting stickers are great, but are people
That's
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, I don't want
I
this
would
anymore.
hope that the audience that this draws in would not
Of
do
course.
that, but you never know.
I'm also, swag's always good, but I guess I'm wondering if even people who do this really swag. I mean, I would like to see more information on QR codes, which also requires quite a bit of work because you got to put something behind those QR codes so that people can actively be looking at stuff, listening to you, and also, oh, so this is the story behind honeysuckle. But all of this is, it's pretty practical.
I know.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's fair.
It's a great
month
longer
away.
term goal, and I think these are things I'd like to have in stock, if you will.
Is there
Eric, you were gonna say.
Go ahead.
is there cell phone reception in the park? I've never tried to make a call from it.
What about something simple? Here's some refreshments, and oh, just take this bookmark which has like a link to our website. But what if we targeted more like, hey, if you want to stay involved, here's how to stay involved. Or even better yet, yeah.
Join our mailing list.
Yeah, exactly. I'd like to share your content.
Get a poster, I'm building on that.
Yeah.
Get a poster, QR code on it, they can take the QR code. They don't have to have any. That can take Facebook, might be a little, and the website. That would be
Having something because you're going to get a mix of people that are totally fine with using QR codes, but there might.
Excuse me, do you want to talk in the mics more so that
Oh, sorry.
people can hear?
sorry.
Sorry.
Drifted
being
away from the
extreme.
microphone.
Yeah, right. So both formats. Don't we have some maps still though of the dunes? And old maps, you know, that kind of look like that.
Color
Didn't-
map.
the
They're
color-
folded up, aren't they, in the boxes?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, those, we could give those out.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we've got the poster that we use for Earth Day that needs to be redone, frankly. But that would be an easy thing to put out as well. Has QR codes on it and that sort of thing. I do like having a sign-up sheet. I do like having a QR code so you kind of meet people wherever they are. Also, I don't mind having something like the map they can.
I think the
Something.
map would be great, yes. I think people really like maps and stuff, so, you know, that's a good tip. Do you think you have enough stuff to give to Kendra?
I think I've got enough stuff. Yeah, and just confirming, right now I've got Gary, JT, myself. Carol, are you available or not?
I
If
can
not,
meet
that's
at
okay.
I can meet at the education
Okay.
center after the. And I bet Nancy, I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I bet Nancy would.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I would be, I would encourage Nancy to join up. And then we'll just discuss this again at the next meeting. Oh, maybe the day after that.
The hike's the 18th, correct?
Yes.
And the next meeting is the 21st.
The next. Oh,
Email.
yeah, so it's going to have to be K to 3.
I'm okay with that. Are you guys okay if I continue to be the point person for it?
Absolutely.
Have consensus on that. And you'll communicate with Kendra as well. Okay, great, perfect. All right, we do have quorum, correct, Craig?
Yes, you do.
And so we would like to discuss and take action if appropriate. Council the appointment of Stephen Schreier to the Students Preserve Board for an unexpired term ending 1st, 2028. And let me just say the second one because of both same preface to recommend to City Council to retain Tim Olson's application in anticipation of advancing it to City Council for appointment to the board in anticipation of a vacancy in June of 2026. So discussion on that.
I'll make a motion to recommend to City Council the appointment of Stephen Schreier to the Kitchel Lindquist Hartger Dunes Preserve Board for an unexpired term ending July 1st of 2028.
Second?
Discussion?
What is his background?
So we interviewed,
Stephen is Michael's brother.
Okay.
4 candidates. Stephen had a really great background. He knew a lot about the park. He had volunteered in the park as an Eagle Scout, is my understanding. We asked 3 questions of all the potential candidates. They were related to use of pesticides. They thought about that, what they thought about deer call, and then just in general, what their preservation ethic was.
Okay.
And we felt like Stephen was probably the most knowledgeable about all 3 of those across the other candidates.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah, I think Stephen also showed the most interest in the goals of the Dunes Preserve and also understood the contradictions, you know, the trade-offs that are involved. And so he wasn't overly romantic about it, but pragmatic, but still extremely committed to the mission of the Dunes Preserve. And it was, you know, mentioned that his brother Michael, who used to serve on this board, built the stairs. And I think Stephen helped build the stairs. He said he was out there as a kid
Okay.
when Michael was. Why we and we had, you know, other excellent candidates, but we really thought Stephen was the one who stood out, and that's why we recommended them.
Sounds good to me.
Call the question.
Call the question. All right. Matter in the motion to recommend the appointment of Stephen Trier to the KLH board for an unexpired term ending July 1st, 2028. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. Can I have a motion for the second item?
Sure. I would move that we retain Tim Olson's application to advance to the city council, assuming the vacancy occurs in June of 2026.
Support.
Discussion. The same process. Dave and I interviewed all 4 candidates. Just a little bit more about the process. It was about a 30-minute interview. Asked the same 3 questions in the same order. What is your land ethic? You know, why do you want to join us? What is your Tim was, we think, you know, the second most thoughtful and knowledgeable person on these issues, demonstrated tremendous respect for public spaces, and understanding, again, the trade-offs between trying to allow human beings to live there, but at the same time keep things as natural as possible. Had a commitment to sharing it with young people in particular. He asked us some good questions about what we were prioritizing. He has a lot of experience working in, he does dune rides where he lives, but he seemed to understand how, you know, that's also sort of a trade-off.
Yeah.
He also, as Stephen did, I want to say, agrees with science, because when we asked him the questions about deer management and herbicides, both Stephen and Tim said, well, you know, it depends on what we're trying to achieve, and it depends on what the data tells us. You know, herbicides may be appropriate, or chemical herbicides may be appropriate in some areas, but maybe other data shows that they're better to be pulling or doing some other method. So I think we took note of that. So we felt that both of those candidates, but Tim especially, or Tim in particular, was data-driven. We thought was important.
Awesome.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. So if this motion passes, the question is going to be typically every April, 1st of April, the city advertises for unexpired terms positions on the commissions and boards in the city. So if this motion passes, would the board prefer not to advertise for opening positions beginning in April?
That would be
okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe that's what we were thinking.
Okay.
Yep.
Does the motion have to be amended or anything to reflect that? Okay. Does the motion have to reflect that?
No.
No, it doesn't. Okay.
This is for my information.
Call the question.
Okay. All right. All those in favor of the motion? Olson's application of advancing it to the KLH board in anticipation of a vacancy in June of 2026. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. All right. Public comments. We have public present. Item 11, the members report. Do members want to speak about it?
I've got a quick one. We've
Okay.
got 6 candidates who have applied for the internship position, in your inbox, you should have a link that takes you to a Dropbox Google Drive with their application materials. So I'm trying to schedule interviews. I've looked through the application materials. I think there are 3 candidates that are standout candidates that I would recommend interviewing. I don't think at this point, I would recommend interviewing all 6. So pending discussion, I'd like to schedule those interviews. And the board is invited to participate, as many board members as possible.
It's going to be person.
It'll be
or-
Zoom. I will
Okay.
set those
Okay.
up.
Yeah, I would participate if I'm available.
And I was thinking about this Friday. I'd actually like to jump on this more quickly than not. So I don't know if anybody is free Friday.
I'll be unavailable, but thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
This Friday? I'll wait. What time?
Flexible. I've yet scheduled.
I should be available hopefully after 5.
Okay.
So Eric, if I'm understanding you right, we have 6 applicants and you kind of have 2 tranches or tiers of candidates. That you've got a top 3 and then there are 3 others. And I appreciate that work to go through them. And would it be sufficient for you and JT to do the interviews on Friday if possible?
More the merrier. I think
that's
having 2 of us is great.
Yeah.
Okay. After 5. I'll keep you posted, JT. The students may be like, I can't meet then, and then we push it to early next week.
after that point.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay. 5 questions. All right, that's great. And I would also just like to say thank you, Dave and Carol, for doing the interviews with
Oh, you're welcome.
the positions. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. That's all I have.
Worked out really.
It did. I've got 3 things. Thank you for making this probably the first publicly recorded KLH board meeting that we've had since I've been tracking this group. I would like to encourage the board to continue making the meetings public because I think all city meetings should be public, but also more strongly, I think that having these recordings, having them available on YouTube helps with our social media presence. We can have people look us up, they can listen to the recordings, although, they may not be the most exciting at the time, but they would get a general idea of who we are, the kinds of things that we talk about, and probably garner us some more volunteer support and maybe more interest in our open board positions. The second item is I recall a meeting, I think it was 2 or 3 months ago, with Ottawa County Parks, where we had discussed our issue with vandalism in our bathrooms and that being the reason why they're generally not open. At the time, Ottawa County Parks said that they had available for us to have programmable door locks, and they were described as you type in the time you want it to lock, you type in the time you want it to unlock, and you set it and you leave it. I don't recall what was said about getting those devices, possibly having our DPW staff install them, but I'd like to encourage us to continue down that path of getting those installed potentially this spring.
We did have some conversations on that, so we're working on it.
Okay. The other item, I've got 2 more, sorry, is just an informational. City staff have drafted an RFP to update the City of Ferrisburg website replacement. And during our last meeting, we had discussed folding our separate website into a subdirectory of the Ferrisburg site. So we would be taking all of our content that we finally have access to, giving it to the city's selected consultant, and then having the website basically under the city umbrella instead of trying to maintain and pay for the KLH site separately. The last item I can't remember, so.
Your point on that number was, are we doing that? Did you want an update on that or?
No, I'm just telling you that the RFP is drafted, but the staff said you were waiting for Ottawa County IT to review it before it's released. we don't have to do anything. I'm just letting you know it's moving forward. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get that information to the consultant.
Yes, we're getting ready to move that out, and it's a good topic. If you have suggestions on who we should mail that to, we'd appreciate that.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
If you have suggestions on who that RFP should be mailed to,
Let's send it to web text for sure.
yes.
I don't know of any other.
Okay, thank you. If you think of anybody, let us know, please.
Sure.
Any other members' reports?
I mean, I'll have kind of a better idea of, you know, what vernal species we have using our parks, probably in the next couple weeks, or by the next meeting, actually. And there is a few things I'd like to say about, like the restoration proposed, that Brian presented on earlier, and some work that had been done here, but probably don't want it on public record just because of my relationship. But I have some concerns with what was proposed. Mainly the fact that $200,000 is a lot of money that could be used in other areas in the preserve. I think that are in need of restoration efforts, like the portion that has the pine plantation within it. Like, we have a lot of wetlands throughout the preserve, and they could use some work, I think. Because none of that pine plantation was never there. That used to be a open interdunal system, and with pine tree or the pine plantation there, it kind of fragments, you know, what we have on the grand compared to what we have on the other side of the plantation along the shoreline there. I'd like to go out there and hike that area just to make sure nothing's overlooked, because with everything that was done at Ottawa Sands, there were some things that were done there that I was not too fond of. Some due diligence done. And then with what we had done on the shoreline, I feel like that could have been done slightly better. Mainly where the plugs were planted. I don't think any. Yeah, and the woody debris they use is, I mean, they're small pine trees. They're not really doing anything ecologically. I was kind of disappointed in how that project turned out personally, but I wasn't involved in it, unfortunately. I think because of the fact that I'm on the board. But I just want to, and obviously it's a discussion that we need to have when the full board is here, but I think there are definitely some things that need to be discussed about what we're going to do. Are there other areas we could utilize funds like that within the preserve?
That's a good. Actually thinking something similar. I thought, why this? Why did this come up?
Right. Well, I think for
So-
Brian is part of a larger multi-project that he's working on right now. I don't think it would have any negative
Correct.
impacts on the preserve, but is it the best way to spend funds like that with our goals in mind for the preserve? So we would just, it might even be worth bringing Bill Martinez in to kind of consult on that too.
He is supposed to be presenting.
Okay.
Bill Martinez is on the agenda for April,
That's correct.
I believe. So that might be a good opportunity to discuss. I mean, if Brian gives us what we asked him to, we could. I think your concerns are due for other priorities. In a way, I believe it's also kind of it's a balancing act, because if there are funds to do this, but if there aren't funds to do other things, then we have to, that would be a different part of the question. But I think your concerns are very valid, so.
Yeah.
A clarification, I think, Craig, we had asked Guy to put a what would be your solution to shoreline erosion on the, the area that Brian was addressing? Is that true? In other words, was that, I assumed that that was a request that came from us.
Well, he came to the board last fall and gave us some preliminary plans what they're doing out of sands, and I think at that time the board invited him to come back when he had more detail.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. So that is what may have driven today's presentation of the
Yes.
work that he's done. Okay. Yeah. All right. Any other comments from the board?
I have a question. Where are we at with looking at the security cameras? Are we waiting on someone to advise on that?
Well, I've asked IT to look at that, and they were looking to see the available Wi-Fi and connection issues.
Okay, thanks.
And I have one comment from Gary Post. He called today and commented that the Earth Day is April 25th, and it's going to be from 1 to 4 at First Presbyterian Church in Grand Haven.
Oh,
Duly noted.
wasn't there a meeting pretty soon about the
Yes.
connection
Next
between
Monday,
the parks? Okay,
30th,
I want to make sure I'm
9
there
a.m.
for that. Okay. Yep.
It's the Grand Haven Memorandum
Oh,
of Understanding. Yep.
Okay, no further member reports. Let's move on to item number 12, schedule
April 21st.
April. We're at the end of our agenda, so we really don't even need. If you would like one, we can do one, but we don't have to. All right, thank you very much. Very productive meeting.
That's good.
Thanks, Craig, for having